Hey everyone, this is my last video for our foundations unit, and this is we'll prepare hopefully for one of the free response options that we have in this chapter. So this is just a little different perspective on how to look at the Constitution, and so hopefully this makes sense to you. Sometimes people struggle with this concept a little bit, so I'm going to do it a little different today. And just start off by showing you this. I just pulled this offline. This is, you can use it in class. I would just take the board and I'll just draw a pyramid, and hopefully just a visual makes sense to you. But this was just some random person came up with these different classes and set it up this way. But socioeconomic pyramid, generally you think of socioeconomic status and the amount of money people have and stuff. You think of it like this. And so this is a good enough representation. So when we're talking about the really rich people, the CEOs of major companies, and the Bill Gates people and people like that out there, who have billions of dollars, many the multimillionaires and all that, there are fewer of them. So this is showing you essentially that in society there are a lot more people at the bottom than there are at the top. And so it's important to think of this when we talk about the writing of the Constitution, because the people who wrote the Constitution were in that upper class. They were at the top of the pyramid, and so they knew there were fewer of them than there were at the bottom. And so a lot of times in early American history, you'll hear you really get into documents and even some of the Federalist Papers, and they talk about protecting the minority. They about the minority factions. They're not really talking about minorities in the sense that we would think of minorities today. They're looking at this and they're saying that the minority are the rich people, and most people were just sort of average Joes. So if the founders were in that upper class, the top of the socioeconomic pyramid, you think they do not want to set up a system of a true democracy. They do not want to set up a system where everybody gets a say and everybody gets a vote. Because if everybody gets equal say and everybody gets the same amount of power when you vote for people or for bills or whatever, then those people the founders, the upper class, they're going to be outvoted always by the poorer people. There are a lot more people at the bottom. So they're worried about setting up a real democracy. So what they do is they set up a republic, and a sort of a democratic republic at first. But they have to convince enough people to support this document, the Constitution. They have to have enough people out there and convince them that what they're doing is they are truly setting up a democracy that is worth the fight of the revolution. But they don't really want it to be, because they're afraid those people, the masses of people at the bottom, will take their stuff. That they don't want the people at the bottom to take their land and their positions and their power and all that. So they've got to sort of pull one over on the majority of people so they can get the Constitution ratified. So what I wanted to just show you is how they do that. So the founders, the way they protected elites, so the people at the top like them in the original Constitution, some of this has changed. So we're talking 1787 Constitution. We think of it as we have three branches, legislative branch, but that's split into two. And then we have the executive branch and the judicial branch, right? And so it's three branches, but there are sort of four parts. So think of what I want to do, just think of in the sense of 1787. Now, some of this is still true today, but and just go through this and go, okay, out of this democracy, remember we fought the revolution for freedom and rights and liberty and all this stuff. Okay, so we set up this great democratic system in the Constitution. The judicial branch, are those positions in the Supreme Court, are they unelected or elected? So do we choose them or not? Well, I'm assuming most of you know that these are unelected positions. Okay, they're just appointed by the president. Now, the executive branch, we're going to hear all this stuff in the fall, or it's going to be, who do we want in fall of 2020? Trump, Biden, and you see ads on TV and debates and everything, and people go to the polls and they'll vote. We're not voting for the president still to this day. We're voting for a panel of electors, for a slate of electors in the Electoral College, who then choose the president. Now, there is a in many states a direct connection to the popular vote, in some states not. And the Supreme Court just had an important ruling on this too. But essentially, we're voting for a slate of electors. We are not choosing a president. And you can even look at the Trump, beating Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton had 2 million or so more votes, but didn't win. So we're going to say that that this is unelected. In the legislative branch, if you start with the Senate was unelected until the 17th Amendment. Okay, so and so that really is up into the 1900s. So for more than half of American history, the Senate was not an elected position. They were appointed by state legislatures. Now, the House of Representatives has always been elected. So you look at it this way and you go, okay, what fraction of the government was actually elected? And you break it down and you go, well, geez, it's 1/4, right? 1/4. Well, it depends how you do math. Because the judicial branch is unelected and the executive branch is unelected. Then you have the legislative branch. Well, half of it is unelected. So you could actually say half of a third. So you could say it's actually really only 1/6 of the government. Depending on how you look at it, your math mind works. You go, wow, we didn't really get to choose many positions in this new government. And then you say, well, okay, what are let's just say this, what are the terms? Well, judicial branch are life terms. The president is 4-year terms. The Senate is 6-year terms. And the one part of the government that was elected originally, now the Senate's elected now, and the House has always been elected. So the legislative branch is totally elected now. Okay, but early on, you'd say, okay, out of the 4 parts of the government, the one with the shortest term is the only one that's elected, because the founders set it up and they thought, oh, we'll have maybe some stupid farmers and they'll win an election or something in the House, and then they'll be cycled out. Okay, they're going to be farmers, they're going to work in the summer, they'll go to the Congress in the fall, and they'll go to Congress, they'll have a Christmas break, and they'll go to Congress a little bit in the spring, then they got to be gone in the summer to plan, and they're going to be continually running for election, or just at least just leaving, cycling out. But all the other ones will be the smarter people, the elites, who are going to keep things running smoothly, right? And then you start to say, let's just look at some of the powers. Well, the unelected president, he commands the troops. The president is going to make, now we're going to have separate chapters where we get into all this, but he makes treaties. He is going to appoint officials, including Supreme Court members. The president is going to pardon people. He has the ability to pardon people. He has the ability to recognize countries. The president is going to have power to do something sort of on his own. Now, when you take some of these, well, the Senate, okay, they're going to ratify treaties. They're going to approve appointments, like a Supreme Court judge or something. They're going to appoint. They'll approve those appointments. And so, okay, fine. Okay, so now we're looking at it saying, well, what does the House get? Well, the House gets the right to impeach, and to impeach the president if he potentially is not doing things right. Okay, so the legislative branch, the way they break it down, is that they're going to give powers. The big powers will mostly be to the president in coordination, in conjunction with the Senate. Now, they give this important power, and there's a Federalist paper where one of the authors of the Federalist paper just goes, look, don't worry about it, because if the House, who's elected, if they don't like something the president's doing, they can impeach the president. If he's done something horrible and awful and bad, and everybody knows he's wrong, then they can impeach him. Well, you may or may not remember this, but because it's happened recently, the Senate is going to have the impeachment trial. And so in the impeachment trial, you are going to need 2/3 to remove, which is going to be very, very difficult to get. So they're going to set up a system where everybody in the House could want to impeach the president and all vote that way. And the majority of the Senate could vote to remove the president. But as long as the president gets just over 1/3 of the people on his side, then he will be able to stay in office. And back then, you're talking 13 states, and so 26 senators. So the president really only needed 9 people on his side. He just needed 9 to convince not to get rid of him, and it could be a 17-9 vote in the Senate to remove the president. He'd stay in office. So there was, and I'm taking some of this basically mostly from an anti-federalist work I read one time, where this anti-federalist guy goes, look, people, don't vote for this Constitution. This is crazy. This is not this is not a democracy. They're not giving much say at all to the people. They're giving power to a president who was not really elected, chosen by elites, electoral college members, and at the time had no term limit, so he could serve 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, 4 years forever. And the Supreme Court is chosen by elites, the president and the Senate, and they have no term limits. They can be there forever. The Senate, who was appointed by other rich people from the state governments, and they have 6-year terms, and they don't have term limits. So they're going, look, the only part of the government that's elected is this little rinky-dink little house, which doesn't have a lot of power. And so don't trust this. But not only that, but you go, okay, if they're only going to have the House be elected and not the other 3 parts, well, they don't even let the elected part of government be its own entity. So if you think about it, the judicial branch, entire branch unelected. Executive branch, entire branch unelected. We're going to let the House be elected, but we're going to check it inside its own body so that the House can't even present a law. They can't even pass a law without having to be approved by all these like rich people, these elite people in the Senate. And so it's a way to just basically check the House. They set up a system to check the House because the founders believed that the masses of dumb, uneducated, poor people are going to control the House, but we want to put all the checks possible on them. So we're going to have 1/2 of 1/3 of this government elected. I could go on with more powers here of the different, of the branches and how it all works, but you just have to think of it in the sense that the major power, which one would you rather be in, the House or the Senate? Well, every person would choose the Senate. You get paid more, you get longer terms, you're more powerful, there's fewer of you, you're more important. So the positions here, the least important position is the House, and that was the only one that was elected originally. Now, so today, the Senate's elected, the House is elected. Most of the states, they make it so the electoral college voters have to vote the way the state votes. So there's a tie in there to popular vote a little bit. And then obviously the Supreme Court is still unelected and they're there for the rest of their life. But I just want you to take away from this that we fought a revolution for a democracy in a way, but it really wasn't a very democratic system that we set up. So hopefully that makes some sense to you guys. And I can, let me get this back here. And I will stop there. I guess I almost took up all my 15 minutes of time. So if you have questions on that, let me know. It may be a little confusing, but we set up a system that was a republic, so the representatives could check the power of the masses, and it was not a very democratic system, especially originally, and many would say today. So thank you for following, and we will see you tomorrow.